Hello friends, welcome to my channel Clinical Biochemistry by Dr. P.K. Prabhakar. Today we are going to talk about electron transfer chain and its inhibitors and uncouplers. I have detailed video already prepared and uploaded on my channels regarding electron transport chains and different complexes. You can watch those videos. I will give the description link of those videos in the description box. If you have not subscribed my channel, please subscribe it. Press the like button, bell button, so that you will get notification whenever I will upload a new video. So let's see what are those inhibitors and uncouplers for ETC. So before going to talk about those inhibitors and uncouplers, we should understand some of the background information regarding oxidative phosphorylation or electron transport chain. So first, all these electron transport chains, yeah, different components of electron transport chains is present in the mitochondria. And in mitochondria, because mitochondria is having two membranous structures, so inner wall of mitochondria contains this electron transport chains. So mitochondria helps in the generation of ATP via the oxidative phosphorylation, especially in all the eukaryotic cells. This oxidative phosphorylation is a process by which the free energy is going to be released when electron is going to be transferred from one electron carrier to the one place to the other place. So because of the electron movement through this electron transport chains, free energy is going to be generated, and those free energy we are going to use, yeah, mitochondria is going to use for the formation of ATP. Oxidative phosphorylation is the main source of energy, especially in case of aerobic cells. So the cells during the presence of oxygen or in aerobic conditions, they are having this oxidative phosphorylation. In the absence of oxygen, this process or electron transport chain does not work. In case of some uncoupled mitochondria, because electron transport chains takes place, electron movement occurs, but free energy is going to be generated, and as the electron is not transferred down throughout the ultimate or the last acceptors, so the energy whatever produced here is not utilized for the ATP generations, ATP productions. So this free energy is appears in the form of heat. So that is one kind of heat productions processes that we will talk during the later phase of the presentations. In electron transport chains, roughly we are having four electron complexes, and the fifth complex is where ATP is going to be produced. So these four complexes are NADH. First complex we are going to call NADH ubiquinone oxidoreductase. Second complex is called as succinate ubiquinone oxidoreductase. Third complex is ubiquinone cytochrome C oxidoreductase. Fourth complex is cytochrome C reductase oxidase, and fifth complex is ATP synthase. Not only these five complexes are there, there are intermediate electron carriers are also there. Those are ubiquinones and cytochrome C. So I will show you the pictures. This is the basic pictorial diagram of the mitochondria. This portion is the cytoplasm, and this is the mitochondrial matrix as it is written here. This is outer wall of the mitochondria, and this is inner wall of the mitochondria, and this is a kind of cristae, you can call it. In the inner wall of mitochondria, we are having different complexes in the form of, it is arranged in the sequential order, and this is called as electron transport chains. This is complex 1, which is we have seen NADH ubiquinone oxidoreductase. And so if we are having NADH as an electron carrier in the reduced form, which normally we get during the glycolysis and the Krebs cycle, so this NADH donates its electron through the different electron carrier or through different iron sulfur center and the cytochromes via this one, and the electron carrier ubiquinone takes those electrons and gives it to the complex number 3. The complex 3 is ubiquinone cytochrome C oxidoreductase. Here we are having different again electron carriers, that is BC proteins or BH proteins. So those electron carriers again give electron to the cytochrome C, which is a mobile electron carrier. This cytochrome C normally carry electron from complex 3 to complex 4, and then finally those electrons will be taken by this oxygen and protons, and ultimately water is going to be formed. During this process of electron transport from NADH up to this oxygen, through those electron carriers mediated by electron carriers, protons is going to be transferred from the matrix, mitochondrial matrix, to the intermembranous space. So roughly, for this one NADH transportation, one NADH contains two electrons. For those two electron transport from here to this oxygen, roughly 10 protons is going to be transferred from matrix to the intermembranous space. And if we are having FADH, which we are normally getting during the Krebs cycles, so those Krebs cycle FADH does not participate from complex 1. NADH FADH participate through complex 2, and then through this ubiquinone it is going to give electron to the complex 3. From complex 3 it goes to give to cytochrome C, that is a mobile carrier, and then it will come to this oxygen. So in case of NADH, via first complex 1, then complex 3, and then complex 4. So this is the way of electron transportation in case of NADH. In case of FADH, it is complex 2, then complex 3, then complex 4, and then it is there. This is the way. If so, if we are having NADH as in the reduced form, so for 2 electrons from NADH to the oxygen transport 10 protons, 4 in the complex 1, 4 in the complex 3, and 2 in the complex 4. Whereas in the same place, if we are having FADH, it helps in the transportation of only 6 protons from matrix to the cytoplasm, intermembranous space. 4 as complex 3 and 2 at complex number 4. This is how this transports occur. So because of these proton transports from the matrix to the uh, intermembranous space, there is a proton gradient has been created. So more protons is accumulated into the intermembranous space, and less protons will be in the matrix. So because of this proton gradient creations, those protons will be transported back to the matrix through this ATP synthase, which is having mainly two kind of a structure, that is F0 form and F1, which is having different alpha ABC or alpha beta gamma forms, gamma subunits. So proton is going to move through this ATP synthase, that is behaving as a channel, proton channel you can call it, into the back into the matrix. So for this during this proton movement, there is a free energy generations. That free energy is going to be used for this ATP synthesis. So ultimately, because of electron movement, electron transport from NADH to the oxygen or FADH to the oxygens, proton gradient created, proton gradient is going to transported back to the matrix, and that generates free radical, and that free radical will be used for ATP synthesis. This is how this whole process works. Now we are going to say inhibitors. So first we should understand what is inhibitor. Uh, Inhibitors are those which going to inhibit any kind of processes. So inhibitors are called as inhibiting agent. They binds with a specific electron carrier, because we are talking about electron transport chains. So here we are having different types of electron transporters, electron carriers. Some iron sulfur center is here. This is ubiquinone. Here we are having BH protein, BL protein. This is one electron carrier. So different electron carriers, electron transporters we are having. So these inhibitors binds with different types of electron carrier. We will see in details. The inhibitors binds to different component of electron transport chain and block the movement of electron from one place to other place, from one component to other component. Once this inhibitors binds with the carrier, it does not allow them to change in the reversible form, and or from an oxidized state to a reduced state. Means it is going to block the electron transportation, electron movement from that particular component to the next process, next step. The synthesis of ATP stops due to the cessation of energy release. The most important known inhibitors for electron transport chains are amytal, rotenone, antimycin A, carbon monoxide, sodium azide, cyanide. These are some of the inhibitors. So we are going to see one by one. If you'll see here, first we are going to talk about rotenone, which is a inhibitor of complex 1. Complex 1 means we are talking about NADH ubiquinone oxidoreductase, the first complex from where NADH is going to be oxidized. So this rotenone is a plant product and used as a insecticides. It is extracted from the root of Deris elliptica, but nowadays it will be present in number of plants. This is the structure of rotenone. It is a strong inhibitor of complex 1 of the electron transport chains. So it blocks electron movement from complex 1. It inhibits the transport of electron through the NADH coenzyme Q reductase complex. It is same what we are going to call is NADH ubiquinone oxidoreductase. It is same enzyme complex which we are going to call NADH coenzyme Q reductase also. Certain tribal peoples uses this one as a fish poison because this blocks the ATP synthesis. So fish normally going to paralyzed and then they catch the fish. So it is also used as a fish poison. So this rotenone is one of the important inhibitors of complex 1 of electron transport chain. So once it will be blocked, electron cannot move to ubiquinone and from there to the complex 3 and then to the complex 4. Second is here we are going to talk about some of the other inhibitors like penicillin A, amytal and demerol. Amytal is also called as amobarbital. This is the structure of amytal. It is a barbiturate, barbituric acid derivatives. It inhibits the transportation of electron through the NADH coenzyme Q reductase complex. Again, complex number 1 only. Second is demerol. This demerol also inhibits works as a complex 1 only. And third one is pyricerin A. This is an inhibitor from the microbial origin. We are going to achieve it, going to get it from the microbes. Its mode of action is similar to the rotenone, means it also binds with the complex 1 and it blocks the electron movement from complex 1 to the ubiquinone. Its structure resembles that of the ubiquinone, so it competes for ubiquinone. And where we are having ubiquinones, you have seen between complex number 1 and complex number 3, we are having a ubiquinone electron carrier which carry electron from complex 1 to the complex 3. The structure of penicillin is equivalent to the ubiquinone, so it competes for the electron. So in place of ubiquinone, the electron is taken by this penicillin, so it does not transfer to the complex number 3. This rotenone, amytal and demerol, so first three, they blocks the oxidation of iron sulfur cluster of complex 1. I have told you in complex 1 we are having number of iron sulfur centers. So the oxidations of those iron sulfur center is blocked by these uh, inhibitors. Next, we are talking about antimycins. This is an inhibitor of complex number 3. This is an antibiotic from which is isolated from Streptomyces species. It blocks the electron movement from complex number 3 of electron transport chain. In complex number, this is complex number 3. If you will see in this case, the electron which is coming from complex number 1 or from complex number 2 through ubiquinone, it is given to the cytochrome B, and then from cytochrome B electron will be given to cytochrome C. So this process. So this antimycins, or this is this British anti-levisite, which normally used as this was used as during the World War also. So this antimycin and BAL, British anti-levisites, blocks the electron movement at this place. So the electron will not be transferred from cytochrome B to cytochrome C1. So it will be blocked at that particular place. This is two different compounds which is especially blocks the complex 2, that is succinate ubiquinone oxidoreductase, means when FADH is not going to be working, it cannot be reduced. So if I am going to like this is two thionoid fluoroacetones and carboxyls, and this is carboxyl, this is thionoid fluoroacetone. If we are going to use these two compounds, means it will stops the oxidation of FADH, but because it works on complex 2 and NADH does not involve complex 2 for the electron transport. So if you are going to use these two compounds, we can oxidize NADH, but we cannot oxidize FADH. Similarly, if we are going to use these compounds like rotenone, amytal, domerols, and pyrazines, because it works on complex 1, so we cannot transport electron from complex 1 to complex 2, 3, 4, means NADH cannot be oxidized. But because it does not work on complex 2, so FADH can be oxidized. Then we are having some of the inhibitors for complex 4 also, where cyanide, azide, and carbon monoxide normally inhibits the electron transfer by binding tightly with the iron coordinated at cytochrome C, because this is cytochrome. Cytochrome normally is iron containing proteins. So this contains iron, Fe. So this which is iron which is present in the cytochrome A3. So these molecules, cyanide, azide, or carbon monoxide binds with this iron and then stops the electron movement. Azide and cyanide binds to the iron when they are in the ferric form, and carbon monoxide binds to the iron when they are in ferrous state. So both cyanide, azide, and carbon monoxide binds in different forms of iron. Cyanide and azide are potent inhibitors at this site only, which accounts for their acute toxicity. So whenever a person have cyanide toxicity or azide toxicity, they stops this electron movement at complex 4. So neither FADH nor NADH can gives you ATP. But the carbon monoxide is toxic due to its affinity for heme iron in hemoglobin. So if we are going to, some person is having a carbon monoxide toxicity, because carbon monoxide is having high affinity for the heme iron. So for to block this electron transfer chains by carbon monoxide, we require high amount of carbon monoxide, because most of the carbon monoxide will binds with this heme iron of the hemoglobin. So for electron transport chains, we are having less carbon monoxide available. So compared to cyanide and azide, we require high dose of carbon monoxide for same kind of effect because of its affinity towards the heme iron. Inhibitors of ATP synthesis, that is complex number 5, DCD, that is called as dichlorocyclohexyl carboxamide. This is covalently binds to the glutamate residue of C subunit of F0. We have seen F0 and F1 subunit in case of ATP synthesis. Those F0, which is the membrane associated, in that membrane associated component we are having glutamate residue. So this DCCD binds covalently with this glutamate residue. When this covalently binds with this F0 complex, it blocks the proton channel, which causes the rotation. And if this will be blocked, so no rotation will be there, so no ATP synthesis will occur. Second component is oligomycin, which is a antibiotic, peptide antibiotic. This binds directly to the ATP synthase F0 subunits and blocks the flow of proton through this channel. So no proton movement will be there, no free energy generation will be there, no ATP synthesis will be there. So these two inhibits directly ATP synthesis process and works on ATP synthase. PO ratio, phosphate and oxide. These also the till now whatever we have talked about, we have talked only about the inhibitors. We have not talked about uncouplers. So now we are going to see about what is uncouplers. So before that one, we should see, we should understand what is PO, phosphate and oxygen ratio. The PO ratio is the number of ATP molecules formed per 2 electron transferred to the oxygen. We have seen in case of electron transport chains, electron was transferred from the reduced form of NADH or FADH, and ultimate electron acceptor was the oxygen. So for 2 electron movement from NADH or FADH to the ultimate acceptor of oxygen, how many ATP can be formed? In case of, if we are going to talk about NADH, for the every 2 electron transport, 10 proton is going to be pumped from the matrix to the intermembranous space. 4 in complex 1, 4 in complex 3, and 2 in complex 4. So total 4 protons per ATP synthesis, right? So this 4 protons are channeled back to matrix in the matrix per ATP synthesized. So PO ratio is 10 protons which is transferred and 4 proton per ATP. So how many ATP will be produced from NADH? That is 2.5 ATP produced every 2 electron transferred. Similarly, for FADH2, 6 protons are pumped. 4 proton are pumped at the complex number 3 and 2 protons are pumped at the complex number 4 per 2 electron transfer, and still 4 proton per ATP required. So if we are having FADH as a reduced molecule, so we can synthesize 1.5 ATP per 2 electron movement. So this is called as PO ratio, phosphate oxygen ratio, for NADH and FADH. This is the summary. So in here we are having two types of processes. One is called as electron transport chain. So this process, this four complexes, complex 1, here we are having complex 2, complex 3, and complex 4, along with these two electron carriers. We are having, this is called as electron transport chain. Along with this electron transport chains, we are having a ATP synthase, which normally participates in oxidative phosphorylations. Phosphorylation means phosphate additions. Now, if electron is going to be transferred, so proton gradient is going to be created here. So because of this electron movement, proton is going to be pumped from the matrix to the intermembranous space, and that creates the proton gradient. This proton gradient is going to be passed through this channel of ATP synthase, and then ATP will be produced. But if anyhow this proton is going to be leaked, so this proton gradient is not going to be maintained. If this maintenance does not happen due to any reasons, because of any compound which carry proton directly from here to here, without this ATP synthase, means gradient is going to be lost. So those molecules which do this type of loss in the proton gradient is called as uncouplers, which uncouple this electron transport with the oxidative phosphorylation. So oxidative phosphorylation occurs at this place in ATP synthase, and this is electron transport chain. So both process, this electron transport chain is linked with oxidative phosphorylation, then we are going to get ATP. But some components are going to reduce this proton gradient and uncouple electron transport from the oxidative phosphorylations. So these are three very important, very common uncouplers. These are dicumaryls, FCCP, that is called as carbonyl cyanide P, trifluoromethoxyphenol hydrogens, and dinitrophenol. These compounds are normally hydrophobic. Hydrophobic means it is lipid soluble. So what these compounds do? These compounds binds with those protons. So this is the mechanism. This is intermembranous space, the space between the two mitochondrial membrane. This is intermembrane, and this is matrix. So normally in the electron transport chains, we are going to create a proton gradient in the intermembranous space. Means here we are having high amount of protons, so pH is very low. In the low pH, in the acidic pH, these are uncouplers. Sorry, these are uncouplers. These uncouplers, these compounds binds with those protons which participate in the proton gradient creations. So this proton binds with these uncouplers and gives us this structures, protonated forms. This protonated forms, I have already told you, these are hydrophobic in the nature, so it is lipid soluble. So it's easily transported back into the mitochondrial matrix through the membrane, because it is lipid soluble. It is diffused through the membrane and come to the matrix. So whatever proton gradient we have created because of this protons movement during the electron transport chain, so those protons is taken back to the matrix without going through electron ATP synthase. So this reduces the proton gradient created, and as a result we are going to lose the proton gradient, so no ATP synthesis will occur. Not only this compound, there are some other uncouplers also there, which is called as physiological uncouplers. Those are long chain fatty acid, this is also uncoupler components. Thio sorry Thyroxine, and one of the important uncoupler is that is called as thermogenin. Thermogenin, Geni, thermogenin. Sometimes calcium ion also works as the uncouplers. So along with those three uncouplers which we have seen here, we are having long chain fatty acid, calcium ion, thermogenin, thermogenin, and thyroxine. These are also works as uncouplers. These are called as physiological uncouplers, and those are called as dinitrophenol, decumenols, and FCCT is called as chemical uncouplers. What is the role of thermogenins? That I will tell you. This thermogenin is a proteins. So normally energy derived from the electron transport chain is released as heat during the uncoupling process. Because in uncoupling, proton gradient is lost because of this uncoupling molecules. So whatever free radical has been generated, these are because they are unable to utilize for ATP synthesis. They are going to be released as heat. Such kind of heat generation is known as non-severing thermogenesis. The heat generated during the uncoupling process is called as non-severing thermogenesis. It is a vital in many biological situations, such as uncoupling occurs naturally in brown adipose tissue. In our body, in our brown tissue, we are having this uncoupling happens and they produces the heat. The inner mitochondrial membrane of such tissue, like adipose tissue, contains a protein that is called as thermogenin. So this thermogenin is present in normally in our adipose tissue. So this thermogenin protein, which is also called as uncoupling proteins, it is an endogenous protein found in the brown adipose tissue. It works as the uncoupler, which uncouples the ATP synthesis from ETC, electron transport chains, by creating a passive proton pump. So they carry through those passive proton pump, protons will be transported back to the matrix, and ultimately no ATP synthesis, only heat is going to be produced. So these are uncouplers. So thermogenin is having a important role in heat production in our body, especially in the organism who normally resides in cold places. This is the summary of different inhibitors. So we have seen inhibitors as well as uncouplers. Uh, at complex one, these are the inhibitors. I have seen only example of few of the inhibitors, but these are number of inhibitors which work as complex one. So does not allow electron movement from complex one to the complex three through this cytochrome C. These are some of the compounds which works at complex 2 inhibitors. These are the complex which compound which works as the complex 3 inhibitors. These compounds along with azide, cyanide, carbon monoxide works on complex 4 inhibitors, and oligomycins and DCCS works on ATP synthase inhibitors. So these are different inhibitors, different uncouplers. So that's all for today. Hope you have understand. If you have any query, any comments, you can write in the comment box. You have not subscribed my channel, please subscribe it. So thank you very much. Have a nice day. You can follow me on any of the social networking sites. So thank you very much. Have a nice day.